Welcome to the Retirement Compass radio show. I'm Mike Bauer, consumer advocate, and pleased to be joined by Tim Kulhanek, a CPRS, Chartered Retirement Plans Specialist, financial advisor, and co-founder of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, serving families, where he grew up in Kearney, where he moved to open up the new office in Lincoln, in Grand Island, and Omaha, all over Nebraska. Tim, before we get into some of the topics of the day that we've got scheduled out, I got to ask you this. And
yes,
this is a very personal question.
I'm ready, though.
Is it a good element of a retirement plan for somebody to bet on a sport they don't know anything about because they're getting boosts from the apps in their phone? Asking for a friend.
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't, right?
Because I know nothing about World Cup, but man, with the World Cup, a lot of people, World Cup fever. I know nothing about soccer, but a 50% boost, I can't resist, Tim.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do you play darts as well, or 180?
Yeah, darts. I'm a big bar shuffleboard guy. I love, billiards games. By the end of the night, always find me by a pool table.
I've never been much of a betting man myself. I did in college a little bit, and I would do these 12-team parlays. And would you believe that I didn't win any of them?
I am shocked to hear that.
I know.
And I'm sure you got 11 of them, and then it was the last one.
It was always 11 out of 12. Yeah, you're right.
It's always the one you're like, oh man, they should have won by 50 points and I lost this bet. But nonetheless, let's get into it here on the Retirement Compass radio show. And let's talk a little bit, not about sports betting, but let's talk about cars. And not specifically about cars, but let's look through the lens of, maybe a lot of people listening are car guys, car gals, and they can understand the comparison that I want you, Tim, to go along with me here, is that if you actually had a bunch of cars in your garage, what would they be in terms of a retirement plan? Because, a lot of times you see the alphabet soup, a bunch of numbers and letters, the 401ks, the IRAs, the 457s, you get Roth, they all kind of blur together. So if they were actual physical cars in your garage, let's start off with the most familiar one, the 401k. What kind of car would the 401k be?
Called the daily driver, right? So some people might refer to it as a company car. And if you think about it, we mean that in a literal sense, right? Typically, if you think about somebody who has a company vehicle, it's chosen by the company. They're the ones that pick out what, bells and whistles it comes with. And usually it's the no frills model. It's usually a base model. Eventually it's going to end up on some Hertz lot or something like that. Or maybe that's where they got it from, I guess would be a better way of putting it. You're typically not going to have a lot of luxury type of additions to that. You're not going to have a cooler in your center console, or the vacuum that comes out, or the reclining middle seat. But it does the job. It gets you from A to B. It just happens to have somebody else's logo plastered all over it, you see those people that you can tell they bought a company car. It's like, are you still the Orkin man, or was that maybe the last? Because I have some bug issues that I'd like to talk to you about, It does the job. It's reliable. It doesn't cost a lot of money, right? Because it's somebody else is providing the maintenance and things like that for it. But what you see is what you get. And you think about it, a 401k is a lot the same. Everybody gets the same options, right? So it's not like, in their company fleet, they've got, because Bob works in accounting, Bob gets a Lambo. Like, that just isn't the way it works, right? Bob's still driving a sedan or a crossover or whatever they went with. And so that's the 401k, is the company car, the daily driver. It gets you, to the job site from, place to place. Hopefully gets decent gas mileage. It doesn't cost you a lot out of pocket. When you leave, they might even give you the opportunity. They're like, hey, you can take that with you if you want to, and here's the cost. Because we don't need it anymore. You drove the wheels off of it. But that's where you would convert that, or in the 401k, in the financial services world, we call it a rollover. You roll it to an IRA, which is a little bit different type of vehicle. But the company car, the thing I think I want to drive home with that is you're going to be limited on what you can do with it, right? The company car, you can't, you're not supposed to, take it on vacation with the family and be like, oh, cool, you guys are paying, all the maintenance on this thing. It has a very specific purpose. It's a limited use vehicle. You use it for daily driving to and from the office or the job site, and that's kind of it. And that's what a 401k does. It does the job, but it's not customized to you, as a unique, a unique individual with a unique set of financial circumstances.
For anybody just tuning in right now, we're talking about kind of comparing cars to financial vehicles and retirement options. You can always give the team a call. They're not going to fix your car, but they will help you look under the hood of whatever ride you've got in terms of your retirement plan. 866-295-5146 is how you reach the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. That's 866-295-5146 or stonebridgeiwm.com. You can set up a complimentary, no cost, no obligation first visit with them at stonebridgeiwm.com. All right, you mentioned the rollover. So if somebody does roll over that 401k, the company car, into an IRA where maybe they've got more flexibility, more options, more control, what kind of car is that in our proverbial garage?
Yeah, I think this is one that, you only bust it out on special occasions. So I grew up in Kearney, and towards like the later part of July, they've got their cruise night, right? And cruise night weekend, they got their show and shine. And, it was always a big event growing up. And it's a lot of classic cars that are just beautiful. These are things that you really want to make sure that they are individualized to you. Now, it doesn't have to be, in my opinion, the classic car, but it's something where you've laid out some money because you want this to really be something that you can enjoy. And if you want to go in and talk to the dealer and you want to make sure that it's got, again, the heated and cooled seats, the adjustable third row, it's got, maybe the AC adapter so you can plug in your, Roku device or something for the flip down TVs that you added with the entertainment package. That's the IRA. It can be customized to your unique financial circumstances. And the reality is, when you think about it, everybody in that 401k we just talked about, they have a slightly different financial situation. And I think it only makes sense that as you get closer to retirement, you want to make sure that you're planning for the goals and aspirations and hopes that you've always had for what retirement could potentially look like. It makes sense to take more control of that so you can truly customize it to your unique financial situation. That's what an IRA can do for you. You can do things to protect it better. The company car probably sits in the driveway, if we're being honest with one another.
Yeah, right.
But this one, it's got a special place in the garage to make sure that it's, safekeeping. A baseball-sized hail isn't going to come and wipe it out, and you're not going to have to start at square one. That's the IRA.
All right. So the company car is the 401k. We just talked about the IRA. Here's something that you, I'm sure, get asked about a lot is a Roth IRA. People always asking about Roth conversions. If that was a car, what kind of car would a Roth IRA be?
See, I would call that a sports car, because if you think about how you allocate your money, you think about tax buckets, which we talk about a lot. And I'm looking out the window here across through our conference, into our conference room, and I can see the tax buckets that Zach drew for his last meeting. And we've got taxable, tax deferred in the middle, and tax free on the right-hand side. So for those watching, maybe it's backwards, but you understand what I mean is there's different money types. In other words, it's called asset location, not asset allocation. Think about it this way. Asset allocation is how much do I have in stocks versus bonds, essentially. Asset location is what type of account are those assets located in? Do I have stocks in my IRA, or do I have more stocks in my Roth? And the reason I say that the Roth is a sports car is because if you plan correctly and you have proper risk management, then where you take your risk is important, and you get a license to take risk in a very specific account. It is Roth, because in the Roth bucket, that's where you want to put your least efficient, highest growth assets. Well, if we think about that sports car or that classic, let's say it's a 1969, maybe it's a Camaro, like a Copo or whatever it is. Like, it probably doesn't get great gas mileage, right? It's not super efficient from that perspective, but man, does it move and does it feel good and sound great. And it can really zoom. That's what a Roth IRA has the ability to do, is we're not worried about efficiency because it's a tax-free environment. And if we're going to get growth, I'd rather see the growth happen in your Roth bucket, because that's money you get to keep rather than taking all the risk and paying for that fuel in the tax deferred bucket, that IRA bucket, where you're growing both your money and the government's. That doesn't seem like a very good deal. So the Roth is going to be the kind of the sports car.
Nice. I like that. This is the sports car. Before we wrap things up in this segment, comparing retirement options in cars, don't forget, you can always get a look under the hood of your retirement plan. Stonebridge Wealth Systems, they can give you a clear written look at whether a Roth conversion makes sense for you. As we're talking about the Roth as a sports car, they have a great website they set up just for that. If you have questions specifically, head to StonebridgeRothQuiz.com. That's StonebridgeRothQuiz.com. You can always schedule an appointment, get your calendar out, and dial 866-295-5146. All right, before we wrap things up, Tim, really quick, Social Security, what kind of car or vehicle, bus, train, what would Social Security be?
I don't know, like a Chevy Nova or something. I would call Social Security something that we typically think is maybe your more reliable type of vehicle, something that, it can take a lot of abuse and it tends to still, like when you turn the key and turn the ignition, it still turns on. And the reason I put it that way is obviously there's some concerns with the longevity of Social Security, but it's not something that you have to take financial or market risk in order to receive, right? So Social Security is more of that, maybe it's the vehicle that you've just kept around forever because it's, I have some clients that have maybe a Ford Focus or something that's like a 2002 and it still runs, right? They're just like, that thing, it'll never turn off. Like, that's Social Security. It's supposed to be old, reliable. You still have to plan around the potential what-if scenarios with Social Security, but that's how I'd classify it.
It's a lot of vehicles in one garage. We didn't even get to some of the other vehicles in terms of retirement, in terms of, annuities or CDs and money markets and, life insurance. So those could all be cars as well. And regardless of whatever kind of car, using the analogy here, and sorry to beat a dead horse with the cliche, but if that's what you're thinking about, it's a lot of vehicles in one garage. You can give the team at Stonebridge a call at 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. You can always go online, stonebridgeiwm.com. We'll be right back with more Retirement Compass Radio Show after this.
Did you ever think your retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your traditional 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are like a partnership with the IRS. Simply put, they want their tax dollars, and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home. To find out what your future tax liability could be, scan the QR code or go to stonebridgetaxbill.com.
Thank you so much for listening to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, joined by Tim Kulhanek, a financial advisor and co-founder of Stonebridge from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. And, Tim, many people listening spend 40 years or more learning how to save money, and they feel really great about that. They've contributed to the 401k. They've invested for growth. They sit back and watch the account balance hopefully climb. When retirement arrives, the rules change. I mean, it's a different game. It's not building wealth. It's turning that wealth into a paycheck that has to last the rest of your life. How should people really be planning for retirement today in terms of converting from saving to now spending?
It's a major shift in mindset, and it's someone that a lot of people struggle with. So a lot of times folks will come in and they'll be worried about overspending, and it's not uncommon for me to say the words, look, you're never going to spend this money. Like, no. Okay. Are there scenarios where you would spend it all? Yeah. Are they in the top 10% of scenarios I would consider as the most likely? No, not even close, because, there's plenty of data on this. In fact, there was a recent report that came out. It was a study from the Employee Benefits Research Institute that everybody can look up. You can go to EBRI, which stands for Employee Benefits Research Institute. They partnered with BlackRock on this. And what they found was after 20 years of retirement, the average retiree still had at least 80% of what they started with after 20 years of retirement. So think about that. The sole purpose that folks are putting money into these 401ks, these IRAs, these 403bs, these 457 plans was to be able to use it later on. But they found that most people were substantially underspending what they could afford to actually spend. Their safe withdrawal rate was probably close to double what they were actually withdrawing. And the question becomes, well, why? And it's because they haven't got a license. Like I remember when I had the license that went this way, right? It went up and down. It was vertical, not horizontal. That was the first license I got, and it told the people at the smoke shop that I wasn't able to buy the cigarettes. Those P-Funks they were off limits for me, right? What is it, Levi Garrett?
Swisher Sweets. You're not going to go get some Swisher Sweets?
There you go. Yeah, you couldn't get them because you got the wrong license. Well, when it comes to your finances, a lot of people don't have the psychological shift has not been instilled in them. They don't have a license to spend. In other words, they have a rational response to the unknowns of longevity. Like, what if I live for 30 years? Well, you have to be realistic. That could happen. If you have a 65-year-old couple today, if you look at like the Society of Actuaries, another website I'd strongly encourage folks to go to. I can pull it up right now, but I think it's just like SOA.gov or something, or .org. I'll tell you here in a second. But you can start, SOA.org, and you can use their tools online to actually what is my potential? If I'm 65 and I'm married here, what's the potential that I might live to 90 or something like that. And there's probably a 50-50 chance that one of you lives into your 90s. And so, be realistic. Look at family history. Look at your current health status. Are you taking care of yourself? Do you exercise? What do your labs look like? And then you start thinking, well, yeah, I mean, I had a meeting last week and I asked about longevity. And in a nutshell, it was, her mom's 95. Her dad was 92 when he died. Her grandparents lived into their late 90s, right? So, okay. Well, we should probably, I think, consider potentially maybe, planning for a longer retirement here. And so that changes the game, because now all of a sudden we're not planning for necessarily just, two people living 30 years. It could be two people living 25 years and then one person living another 5 years after that. And that's a different calculus because, your budget will change some, but your expenses don't get cut in half. But then we've got tax implications to account for, because now we have widow's tax trap that could creep in. And all of a sudden you thought your expenses were going to go down a bunch, but your tax bill goes up, your Medicare premiums go up, all these things that can happen. And this is the difference between financial product sales and financial planning. If you're listening to this and you're like, Tim, slow down, you lost me. I thought we were talking about, spending the right amount of money and knowing how much I have to spend, and now you're talking about taxes. The reason is because it's all connected, because my job isn't to show you what great rates of return that you've achieved. Obviously, we want to achieve great rates of return. That's kind of the growth engine of your entire financial plan, is we need to keep up with inflation. We need to have capital appreciation and yield. All those things are important. But my job is to make sure that you actually get to spend the money and not feel guilty or punished for doing so because of things the IRS is doing. And so we start with a realistic view, Mike, of how long retirement might last, right? We maximize Social Security for you as a household. So that doesn't mean that you're waiting till 70. Some people hear that and they're like, oh, so you want me to wait till 70? No, not at all. In fact, oftentimes when we run plans, that makes the least amount of sense. It might look good on paper if you just accumulate over time, but your break even could be 82, 83. When are you going to use that money more, do you think? When you're 85 or when you're 68 and you want to go travel and explore the world and do all those bucket list type items while you have your health, Because just because you live into your 90s doesn't mean that you're going to be, out mowing your lawn when you're 95, hopefully, right. But not everybody is. So that's really what goes into it, is being realistic and finding what's my safe withdrawal rate? And there's no one size fits all, people use the 4% rule, but it's all relative to what your objectives are. If your objective is to maximize the amount that you leave to the next generation, and you would sacrifice retirement enjoyment, right? In your level of satisfaction in retirement, you would willingly subordinate that to ensuring that the maximum amount goes to the next generation. Well, then, maybe your safe withdrawal rate to achieve that specific outcome is lower than what it would be for somebody who's like, well, my kids are set up, they're really good, I want to leave, I want them to get whatever's left. But like my primary objective is ensuring that, my spouse and I are able to enjoy some things together that we haven't been able to do our whole lives, well, then your safe withdrawal rate's probably quite a bit higher than a lot of these people. So we got to give you your license to spend. That's really what is the key here, Mike.
Do you need a license to spend? Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call to help you get that, whether it's the vertical or the horizontal license. They help you get the proverbial license to spend. And a great website they set up specifically for this is stonebridgeretirement.net. That's stonebridgeretirement.net. Get a quick gut check there, because if you're thinking like, hey, if you stop working tomorrow, do you actually know where your paycheck, right? Your paychecks are going to stop, but where does your paycheck come from in the future years, and how long would it last? Give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. You talked about, Tim, about getting great rates of return. What's the difference between somebody who could be a great investor for decades, but then still struggles in retirement? Successful investing doesn't automatically translate into successful retirement income and planning and, creating that paycheck.
It doesn't. And the main reason is because it's like two completely different, it's like changing occupations almost and going into something a totally new environment, right? Just because I'm good at snow skiing doesn't mean I can water ski, even though they both have the word ski, in the name. And I've tried. I'm not very good at water skiing. It looks fun, but
it's hard to get up once the boat starts going. My fat, I'm still stuck in the water. Like, come on, I've snowboarded for 25 years. It's like I can't wait for it because I can't get out of the water.
Yeah, right. Last year I got up out of the water, and could stay up for a while. With Jeff's wave boat, I couldn't let go of the rope. I'd just sink. So I think it wasn't me. Clearly, it was the lake. It was causing problems. Probably his boat. He probably should have bought a better boat, Jeff. Come on. Like, don't be so cheap. It's Jeff Gove I'm talking about, but everybody, so say something to him. It wasn't me. My point is that when you're looking at the distribution phase of retirement specifically, right, the rules of the game change because it's less about just looking at market risk. Like, that's one of the risks that you have. But now you've got longevity risk we talked about. You've got tax risk. You've got IRMA risk. You've got rules risk. And you've got legislative risk. So we don't have time to go through all of those, but probably one of the biggest risks is the tax/legislative. If you look at, on average, when the government changes tax rates like they did in 2017, that were effective in 2018, they lowered rates, and then they made those permanent on July 4th, 2025 with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. But permanent just means that they don't automatically revert back to what they previously were, and it would take a new bill to change the rates. Well, using history as a guide, on average, when government comes in and changes rates permanent, either way, up or down, it's about 8 to 12 year gap between that change to a corresponding change the other direction. Well, if 2018 is when the rates were effective and it's 2026, like, I don't know, if you use history as a guide, sometime in the next 4 to 6 years, we would expect that there's a better than zero probability that rates could be going back the other way. So these are the types of things that we have to be forward-looking. So often we're reactionary in how we plan for finance. And when we're working, we can afford to kind of be ignorant of those things because we're working. In 2 weeks, guess what? There's another deposit coming in. But in retirement, that's not the case. So when we're working, we're dollar cost averaging. The market goes down. We buy at a discount. We've got dry powder. We got our 401k contributions plus the match going in. Reverse that in retirement. Now you're taking money out and you're locking in losses if there's a big drop. So there's just a different set of rules that apply once you enter that distribution phase, which is why in the world of financial planning, we're not a generalist. We're very focused on one key area, Mike, and that is retirees and understanding what this distribution phase is like. Because think about Everest. A lot of people climb up there. Where they get in trouble isn't on the way up. It's on the way down.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Tim, you just talked about the risks, the market, longevity, legislative, tax rule. I mean, those are a lot of risks to consider, and that's specifically in retirement when you're in that withdrawal phase, when you're creating that paycheck for yourself. If you're listening and you've been saving for decades but never actually written down how you're going to turn that into income, how you're going to create your own paycheck, you're not behind. You just haven't done this part yet. You just haven't exercised this skill, and that's where the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems come in. Give them a call, set up a no-cost, no-obligation visit, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. You can always get started anytime at stonebridgeiwm.com. That's stonebridgeiwm.com. We'll be right back on the Retirement Compass Radio Show.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Gove with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Are you taking too much risk with your retirement or not enough? Most people really aren't sure. That's why we created the Stonebridge Risk Quiz. In just a few minutes, it helps you discover your personal risk tolerance. Your score could reveal why your investments sometimes feel too aggressive or maybe too conservative. It's quick, simple, and eye-opening. Scan the QR code or visit stonebridgeriskquiz.com to see if your money matches your mindset.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, serving families in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. And for our listeners here, this segment, Tim, I want to take a quick few minutes, and we do this each week on a topic that matters specifically, really important to farm and ranch families. So let me ask you this, Tim. What happens when the farm itself is the retirement plan?
It's not uncommon to see, our ag clients where if they didn't have, maybe they didn't hear like the message we share every week on this show, or like, hey, you've got to diversify, you've got to diversify, you've got to diversify. They get to retirement and there is no diversification. The farm is it, right? Then you start looking at cash rental rates net of property taxes, and it's like, well, that doesn't look great. It's not a really attractive yield. And you start realizing, like, maybe if I'm listening to this, so I'm going to begin with the end in mind. Okay, what if the farm is the retirement plan? But what if I'm listening, before I get to that, what if I'm listening and I still have like 5 years before I want to be done farming? Well, now is the time to start that diversification process where maybe we start like a solo 401k and we start putting some money away into some sort of other vehicle. Now's not a great time to be talking about this, Mike, because, farming's not at its high point right now as far as its profitability, just with where prices are, not only for your inputs, but also what you can sell your grain for. But it might be time to think about, how can I spread this out? A lot of times where farmers will save that money is they'll save it in the bank, right? Well, I got savings, I got CDs, but that's what I call losing money safely, because, your net yields after taxes on that money is probably, 2.5% or something along those lines, and inflation's at least that. And so you're just silently falling behind. It's like a financial termite. You don't really see it until you go down and peel back some of the sheetrock and you realize, oh my gosh, like the frame of my house is going to crumble here. So that's for those who haven't got there quite yet. Like that, give us a call. Even if you're within 2 years of retirement, there's some plans you can implement that we need about 3 years, and we can really pump away some substantial retirement savings for you, so you don't have to make that decision on, now I'm at retirement and I've just got the farm. Can I afford to live on cash rent? Have I got everything paid off so my land payment doesn't eat up like the majority or a huge chunk of what revenue I do get? Or like take stock of where I'm at from a family perspective. Does my family, are they involved in the farming operation? Because like there's 3 reasons why people will do about anything, right? It's because they love someone, they love something, or they love what the thing does for them. And if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm in farming, but I want to retire, and my kids, they left the farm, they have no interest in farming. Maybe I've got nieces or nephews, or there's like the neighbor person here that would love to farm my land. I can cash rent this and pass it to the next generation. But realistically, are they going to keep it? Because if I'm gone, the someone, right, that will motivate you to do things is gone, right? If my wife and I are gone, the someone is gone. The thing they didn't actually love that much. Otherwise, they'd be farming, right, if they really loved it. So the thing probably isn't going to keep them there. And so we're down to the economics of what that thing can provide. And if you look at the economics of cash rent versus just an outright sale after a stepped up basis, you can probably see where I'm going with this. So when you're taking stock of what do I do for my retirement, there's a lot of dynamics that can, variables that can play a role here. But if you find yourself in the situation where, hey, there's not a generational interest in keeping this thing going, this isn't a light switch approach. It's not all or nothing, but maybe I consider what are the economics of this and how can I make the most of it without taking a bath on taxes? And those are things that our team here at Stonebridge can talk to you about in a phone call or a one-on-one meeting at our office.
You mentioned that phone call, 866-295-5146. He's Tim Kulhanek, financial advisor and co-founder of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Every farm and ranch family has got to think about it before it comes urgent, right? You want to get ahead of it. If your retirement plan is sitting in your land or your equipment, the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems can help you turn that into an actual income strategy or succession plan. StonebridgeIWM.com is the website, or like we said, you can always give them a call at 866-295-5146. We'll be back with more Retirement Compass Radio Show next.
Hi, I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but how much of it will you actually get to keep? If your savings are in a traditional IRA or 401k, Uncle Sam has a claim on every withdrawal you make. And with tax rates expected to rise in the future, the cost of waiting could be significant. A Roth conversion may help lower your future tax burden. Want to know what your liability could look like? Scan the QR code or visit StonebridgeRothQuiz.com to take our Roth conversion quiz today and see if a conversion makes sense for you.
Thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with us. This is the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, consumer advocate, joined by Tim Kulhanek, financial advisor, co-founder of Stonebridge Wealth Systems with locations conveniently in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. You can always reach them online at StonebridgeIWM.com or give them a call, set up a complimentary, no cost, no obligation visit at 866-295-5146. All right, Retirement Compass, Stonebridge Wealth. People have probably figured out this is a money show, and we talk a lot about money on the show. Let's talk about big money, or maybe it's not big money in terms of a nice round number that a lot of people either aim for or maybe fortunately look behind at, which is $1 million. What are some of the ways that people with, a good war chest there, a good nest egg of $1 million, maybe that's not even that much. I mean, do you often have a conversation with people and they kind of find out from you, they go, oh, I'm actually at that mythical, magical, nice round number of $1 million.
Yeah, all the time.
Nice.
Because an awful lot of people are the millionaire next door, right? The person who, I'll be honest with you, you would have no idea. Most people still have this thought in their head that if you're a millionaire, it means that you've got all the money in the world. But there's a difference between being a millionaire and having the luxury of living a lifestyle like a quote unquote millionaire. And so you think about $1 million in your retirement accounts, it's great. It's a good amount. But if you don't have a pension and you have, let's say, just kind of moderate Social Security, the average Social Security balance, maybe if you're married, maybe one of the spouses gets about $3,200 a month and the other one gets $2,400 a month, right? I see that pretty often. That's pretty common. You combine that with $1 million 401k. For most people in Nebraska, it should be great. If you live in California, I don't know, probably not, because my house would probably sell for $2 million in California. And here they're I gave you $250,000. You know what I mean? So it's but I just painted the walls,
I like the fact that you had a voice for the person that's trying to buy your house. Hey, I'll give you $250,000.
Yeah, give you $250,000. I don't know. Apparently, there's some Italians coming in to buy houses in Lincoln, I guess. I don't know if that was Italian. Maybe it's Jack Caglione for the Kansas City Royals. He wants to move to Lincoln and play for the Salt Dogs. So here's the thing. If you think of average balance by age, so this is from Fidelity, and this is You ready for this? This is where it gets shocking, right? So for baby boomers, the average 401k balance is $260,000, which is an average IRA balance of $286,000. For Gen X, approaching retirement, average 401k balance is $215,600 with the average IRA balance of $118,000. So like, there's two things here. One, I don't want to discourage, just first and foremost, I do not want to discourage folks listening that are like, well, this show is not for me because he's saying if I don't have $1 million, then I'll never retire. I did not say that. You might have heard that because that's how you interpreted my words. That is not what I said, because I just told you afterwards that the average baby boomer today has less than $300,000 in their 401k. Now, the question is like, well, what if they have both, right? So if they have a $260,000 401k and a $300,000 IRA, all right, well, they got $560,000. They're probably in pretty good shape. But if you're earning $100,000 a year, well, that's like 5 years of earnings that you've saved, right? And most people think, well, but my retirement, my expenses will be way less. Well, probably not. Like, I don't know. What do you want to do? Is your ideal retirement doing nothing? Like, man, I can't wait to retire so I can just, sit. Like, no, you want to maintain your standard of living. So most people think they anticipate a larger drop in their burn rate than what they actually will experience. So how do you get there? Like, this is where it's like execution over style is so critical. Stop trying to time the market, number one. Stop thinking that like, oh, well, I'm going to wait until like the best time to buy. If you look at the average investor who buys during an all-time high versus buying at any other time. Have you seen this data, Mike?
I don't know if I have.
So if you look at what the average investor does if they buy during all-time highs versus buying at any other time, the investor that's bought during all-time highs actually fares better long-term. How could that possibly be the case?
I did not expect that. Okay.
Well, because when the market's at an all-time high, what do all-time highs beget?
More all-time highs like the next day.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you're buying and you're getting, again, so it's execution over style. So like this is where Dave Ramsey has some superpower, where his wizardry, his sorcery is getting you out of debt, right? And getting you on a consistent path to savings. Where I would say Dave Ramsey maybe doesn't have as good of an answer as I would like is when he says things like, well, you could just do take 8% a year out of your account because you're going to get 12% returns, linear returns in your mutual fund portfolio. No, you're not. Like you won't long term. That's unrealistic expectations. You're setting people up for failure, and those are the people who will run out of money because they will underestimate the amount they need because they're like, well, if I can take 8% a year adjusted every year for inflation, like I don't need as much. You probably do because there's what we call sequence of returns risk, which means if you retire and then the next year, let's say you retired in 2021 in December. In 2022, we had the worst year of the market since 2008. Tech stocks lost over 30%. It's not uncommon for me to see, like this is the Edward Smith type of trap that people fall into. He was the captain of the Titanic, right? So he knew there wasn't enough lifeboats. He knew there wasn't enough life vests. He knew there could be icebergs, out anywhere on a moonless night in the North Atlantic in April. But it didn't change his strategy. He went full steam ahead on a moonless night and he crashed right into one and he freaking sunk the Titanic to the bottom of the Atlantic. I'm not blaming it all on him, but I kind of am. No. My point is, why did he do it? Because, well, the Titanic, he was suggested was an unsinkable ship. I can't do that accent from that, the villain guy. This ship is unsinkable. Think again, bucko. Sometimes people with their 401ks and their IRAs get the same way, Mike. They got everything in FSCLX, not specific advice, okay? But that's a semiconductor fund from Fidelity. It's done great. But like if we have persistent inflation and if interest rates go up, what do tech stocks tend to do when you have like monetary policy tightening? They don't do very good. That's what happened in 2022 and they lost like 35%. And so some of these people are acting like they're cruising in this unsinkable ship and not preparing for the next storm. And I say, look, folks, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark either. So yeah, he probably seemed like a crazy man at the time, but nobody else was around to see what happened afterwards because they didn't prepare. And so when you think about big money, how do you get big money? Consistency, execution over style, right? Being consistent, putting money away, getting the full employer match. What do you do with it, though, once you've grown it to that large dollar amount? That's where, again, having not only, think back to our first segment, taking it from the daily driver and saying, okay, now I've got this nest egg that I've created, that I've accumulated. I need to make sure that I don't wrap it around a telephone pole, okay? So, and I need to make sure that the hailstorm that comes through doesn't total it out. That's where the IRA rollover comes from. That's why you can be more intentional about how you're investing your money in something like an IRA or Roth IRA and that sort of thing. And you can ensure that what you do have, if you're like the average baby boomer and you've got $260,000 in your 401k, great. The median's much lower than that, actually. So, not many people have that $1 million we were talking about, but more than you think. Like, in other words, if there's like 70 some million people on Social Security right now, it's not 50% of them that are millionaires, right? It's much lower than that. But in a nominal, oh my gosh, my neighbor that, works in food service, it wouldn't be surprising to me if your neighbor that works in food service and, the spouse works in, is a custodian, they might be worth $1.5 million, $2 million. And you'd have no idea, right? Why? Execution over style. That's it. It's not that complicated.
I have a dental hygienist that lives near me, and she's probably near that number because she doesn't drive a Bugatti. She drives the Ford she's had for 10 years. That's, execution over style. For somebody who wants the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems to execute for you, give them a call right now at 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. You can always go online to stonebridgeiwm.com, set up a no-cost, no-obligation visit with the team in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and or Omaha as well. Something I'm sure that people would love to see would be like a 30% jump in their profile, in their portfolio. And 30% is great. All of a sudden, everything went up. You got these huge numbers. Something that people don't plan for is the fact that, well, that number right there is going to be the number that potentially taxes is going to take out in your retirement when you start withdrawing from these accounts. Do you find that tax planning is, and I know you know the answer to this, obviously is a very big part of building real wealth, but do you find that people overlook that quite a bit when in terms of building wealth and especially anticipating that Uncle Sam's looking around every corner?
If there is a aha moment that folks have when they come in and sit in the conference room that I'm looking at right now, it's when myself or one of our team of experienced advisors start drawing out, everyone kind of if you've met with an advisor before that you weren't currently partnered with, right? They weren't your financial advisor. A lot of people have had experiences where they go in and they come out, they're like, man, I guess we did everything wrong is the feeling they have, right? And I don't ever want people to think that, but the aha moment is when I start drawing out the tax buckets and talking about things like income-related monthly adjustment amounts and the impact that their income will have not only on their Social Security because of their Medicare premiums being adjusted, but also the impact that it could have if they leave their wealth to their children, right? If one of their goals is to leave wealth to the next generation, like an inheritance for my children's children, the government wants you to do that and wants you to just kind of lull you into a sleep. I call it the frog in boiling water approach, where they don't come out and tell you about it necessarily and scream and put out a red alert. If anything, the government has told you, don't worry about it. Keep going the way you're going. We're going to let you wait longer and longer before we're forcing you to take money out. And then we're just going to take it all from your children later on. So yes, it's overlooked. I know we're out of time here. Yes, it's overlooked. But yeah, the beautiful thing is, Mike, there are some great strategies that can have a tremendous impact on not only the amount of taxes you get to avoid during your lifetime, so you have more money to spend for your unique, financial situation for your purposes, but you can actually leave more money to your kids, grandkids, the next generation and generation after that. But at the end of the day, it requires something, and that is action, because there's really two types of people that I see. There's people that hear this show and they take action to change their circumstances to better suit their purposes. And then there's those that have heard this show for the last 7 years and they're like, someday I'm going to call him, right?
One of these days. Yeah, the frog in boiling water, okay, you drop a frog into boiling water, it's going to, what the heck? It's going to jump out immediately, but you put it in, kind of some lukewarm water that slowly heats up. It's slowly going to meet its demise over time. Don't let your retirement plan meet its demise over time. Get with the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, 866-295-5146. You can get started anytime at stonebridgeiwm.com or just give them a call at 866-295-5146.
A captain can navigate the open ocean. Calm days, stormy nights, they've seen it all. But when the ship reaches the harbor, everything changes. There's narrow passages, shifting tides, and hidden rocks. That's when the harbor master steps aboard, a specialist who knows how to bring you in safely. I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and we're harbor masters for your retirement, guiding families through life's most important passage. Call the number below to schedule your complimentary retirement strategy session.
Thank you so much for listening to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, and I'm hanging out with Tim Kulhanek of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, a co-founder and financial advisor. They have offices in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha, and they're always on the internet at stonebridgeiwm.com. You can reach them by phone as well at 866-295-5146. All right, Tim, so saving for retirement, that's a big deal. A lot of people do that. They spend multiple decades doing that. But after you stop working, your portfolio has to start working. Every decision matters. And one of those decisions is claiming Social Security. So let me just ask you this. What age should everyone claim Social Security? I don't know where you're going to go with this.
You have to wait till you're 75 because that's 5 less years of having to pay tax on it.
So, I mean, obviously there isn't a one size that fits all. Do you find that most people claim Social Security as soon as they're eligible, like right at the as soon as that door's open, they just kick it down and go for it?
Not really. And I think the reason why, which by the way is a joke, everybody, not specific advice.
You can't do that. You can't wait for that.
Well, you can. It's just a terrible idea.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I see people do it. Like I do. I just saw that the other day. Somebody was 73. They hadn't filed for Social Security. And their reasoning was, well, I don't want to have to pay tax on it. And it's like, remember, what was it? The Matrix, right?
Right.
I have
no
money in this hand.
Yeah.
I have $1,000 in this hand. Which one would you like? Well, do I have to pay tax on the 1,000? Yes, at 20%, and you get to keep 800. So you get 800 net here or 0 here. Which would you like?
Doesn't seem like much.
If I'm going to have to pay tax, I'm going to opt for nothing. Like, that's what you're doing. I'm not trying to be rude, but like that is what you're doing. Is there a cascading effect of drawing Social Security? Yeah. So the decision isn't one size fits all because when I draw Social Security, that's going to impact my provisional income because provisional income is what dictates whether your Social Security is taxable or not. So it's half your Social Security plus all your other income, even tax-free municipal bond interest. So let's just say that your, total income outside Social Security is $75,000, and Social Security is $50,000. Well, your provisional income is $100,000, okay? Because the 75 plus half the 50, which is 25, is $100,000. So once your provisional income goes between over $32,000, then up to half your benefits are going to become taxable. And it's a progressive system, right? So it's not like you get to 32 and $1 and all of a sudden 50% of your Social Security is taxed. That's not how it works. And it's beyond the scope of this show to try to explain a math equation over the radio. Can you imagine? Like, so what I want you to do is I want you to get a chalkboard, okay, folks? All right, you're going to have to carry the one.
If you're driving right now, pull over to the shoulder. We're going to do some math.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's provisional income. Once it gets over $44,000, up to 85% of your benefit becomes taxable. But a funny thing happens is, like, if I was drawing Social Security at 62 because I wanted to take it while I could get it, but I'm still working, I'm going to have the annual earnings test to contend with. Now, if you're self-employed, there's a little bit more flexibility because maybe you are an LLC that files as an S-Corp, you pay yourself a salary, and we can maybe make that salary like right at the annual earnings test, which allows you to, not lose your Social Security, which is cool. It's not tax evasion, to be clear. I would never, ever, ever advocate for anything that's illegal. I'm talking about tax efficiency and minimization. So all the strategies that I talk about are completely above board. It's not like, oh, well, do this and you'll fool the government. No. It's, hey, I know the rules to the game, right? That's the value proposition that we have at Stonebridge is like, hey, we played the game before and we know like whether at the fork in the road, we know what happens if you go left and what happens if you go right. So with Social Security, you've got the annual earnings test. You've got the fact that if you draw Social Security and then later you do a Roth conversion, right? So let's say you're in that golden window between retirement and your required beginning date, which is when your RMDs start. You retire at 66, your RMDs start at 73, and you want to do Roth conversions, but you're drawing Social Security. We have to realize that the impact on your taxes isn't as intuitive as what you would think. Because what happens is, if I'm drawing Social Security and I do a conversion of $100,000, right? I'm not just paying tax on that $100,000. Because if only, let's say my Social Security is $50,000. If I was only paying tax on 50% of it and I do this conversion, I not only pay tax on the $100,000 conversion, but an additional amount of my Social Security, an additional 35% of it is going to become taxable. So all of a sudden, there could be tax on $120,000 or whatever the math would be, even though I only took $100,000. So I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So my effective marginal rate, which is what you should be looking at, not your bracket. Most people just look at their bracket. They're like, well, I'm going to convert in the 22% bracket. That is irrelevant. What matters is what tax do you pay on the next dollar you take out of that retirement account. And if you take $100,000, but you pay tax on $120,000, that's going to hurt a lot more. And you have to be aware of that. Now, what can that cause? This is where I said it cascades. Because now I'm paying tax on the $100,000 conversion, an extra $20,000 of my Social Security, so another $120,000 becomes taxable income. It could phase me out. I'm 65 plus. The big beautiful bill gave me this extra $6,000 deduction if I'm 65 plus, right? Maybe, right? Because once I get above $150,000 of adjusted gross income, that starts to phase out, right, at 1.12% rate. So for every dollar I go over $150,000, I have to pay tax on $1.12 because I lose 12% of every dollar over that $100,000 spread between $150 and $250. So now I'm paying tax on that $100,000. If I was at $150,000, I lose all 12. I just did that thing too. I broke my fingernail. I'm resetting. It cracked. My fingernail is obliterated. All right.
You gonna make it?
If I take, what's that?
Are you gonna make it? Will you survive?
No. If I was a soccer player, this would be like a 25-minute, like, bring the stretcher out.
And then they come out with the magic spray, and you're like, oh, you're fine now. You're amazing.
I'm good.
You went from sniper fire to running. Okay,
yes,
great.
Right? Yeah. All right, I'll reset.
Sounds
Sorry,
good.
you're going to have to piece this together.
No, it's all right. I marked it down.
Okay. So I pay tax on the $100,000 of the conversion, the $20,000 of additional Social Security that becomes taxable, plus another $12,000 of deduction that I was going to receive that I'm no longer getting. So a $100,000 conversion so far has caused taxation on $132,000. But we're not done yet. Because let's say, let's say that I also had some capital gains in my portfolio that I was paying 0% on, okay, because I was below the threshold, right, for having tax on my capital gains. Maybe not much, but maybe it was $20,000 of capital gains. Well, now I'm going to pay tax potentially that's going to push that from the 0% threshold for capital gains to the 15% threshold, okay? So now I have tax on this $20,000 or whatever it is of capital gains. That's 15%. So that's another $3,000 or whatever. So now I'm at $135,000 that I'm paying taxes on it at some rate. But I've also crossed over the $250,000 threshold now. So now, as a married filing jointly taxpayer, I also qualify to pay an extra 3.8% on anything above that $250,000 threshold of what we call net investment income tax. So now there could be additional 3.8% on any dividends, capital gains, interest payments. You can see where this is going. This is why I say, like, when you go into retirement, your risk is no longer singular, right? It's not what's the market doing? When you're working, like, yeah, that's what you look at, but it doesn't really matter because you're still working. You have a paycheck. You're not going to touch this until you're retired, right? Once you're retired, all of a sudden it's like, well, shoot, yeah, I'm worried about the market because I need to live on that money. That money has to last me another 25, 30 years. But I'm also worried about making some sort of structural mistake that could cost me or my family easily 6 figures. Because the one thing I didn't add to that is if that also means I pay more for my Medicare, and maybe I have to pay an extra $12,000 a year for my Medicare or $5,000 a year for my Medicare, we easily have a situation where our tax bill, we thought it was going to be A, and it's not B, it's like F, right?
Right.
That's how far it drifted from one decision we made involving Social Security. So Social Security, really important. It's not as intuitive as you think. It's not as easy as just saying, well, me like money, take now, because I 62. Like, you've got to look at the rules, understand how to interpret the rules, and then make an intentional decision, not by mistake, so later on there's not surprises that you can't do anything about.
You know, I mean, if anybody's learned anything this segment, one, it's hopefully you did pull over and grab the napkin out of the glove box and start taking notes here because,
right.
You know, Tim, you just talked about the effective marginal rate, the net income or net investment income tax, income related monthly adjustment amount. There's so many different elements that go into not just retirement planning as a whole, but specifically when you're going to withdraw, what those domino effects, what that affects one decision can affect so many other elements of your plan. And that's why it's important to have the structure of a written retirement plan. And the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems can help you put that together. 866-295-5146. You can get started anytime at stonebridgeiwm.com. They have locations in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. If you want to meet in person. And really, at the end of the day, it's a strong retirement isn't about chasing the next hot investment. It's about making sure that that paycheck shows up every single month for as long as you need it to. And that isn't just a simple decision. As Tim just broke down, there's a lot of different things that affect different elements of your plan. And it's important to know how it all works together. And that's what the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems will build with you and your situation in mind. Make sure that Social Security and your withdrawals are coordinated, that there's no guesswork involved. Have a real conversation about your retirement. Now is the time. Don't put it off any longer. This is the sign to make a call. Stonebridge Wealth Systems can be reached at 866-295-5146. You can always go online to stonebridgeiwm.com. Get started anytime. And once again, the number 866-295-5146. Tim, on behalf of you and everybody, all the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, thank you for the time today. Thanks to our listeners for spending part of your weekend with us. I'm Mike Bauer, and we'll see you next time on the Retirement Compass Radio Show.